I came home from the hospital to find my son standing in my doorway at 3 a.m. with a locksmith and a woman I barely knew. "Ma," Marcus said, his voice cold as January wind. "My wife owns this house now. You need to leave." I stood there in my nightgown, my hospital bracelet still on my wrist, trying to understand the words coming out of my baby boy's mouth. The baby I raised. The baby I worked 3 jobs to put through college. The baby who used to cry when I left for work and jump in my arms when I came home. That baby was telling me to get out of the house I'd lived in for 43 years. "Marcus, what are you talking about?" My voice cracked like old china. "I just got released from the hospital. They said I had pneumonia. You were supposed to pick me up, but you never came. I had to take an Uber with the last $20 in my purse." The woman beside him stepped forward. Tiffany. His wife of 6 months. She was young enough to be his daughter, with long weave that probably cost more than my monthly light bill and nails so long I wondered how she wiped herself. She smiled at me, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile a cat gives a mouse right before the kill. "Carol," she said, not even bothering with the respect of calling me Miss Carol or Ma like decent people do. "While you were in the hospital, Marcus and I had some important papers to sign. Legal papers. We've transferred ownership of this property to our names. We have every right to ask you to vacate." "Vacate?" I looked at my son. "Baby, this is my house. My name is on the deed. I bought this house when you were just 2 years old, working day and night to make sure we had a roof over our heads." "Not anymore," Tiffany said, pulling out papers from her designer purse. "You signed power of attorney over to Marcus when you went into the hospital. You were confused, disoriented. The doctors said you might have early dementia. Marcus, as your attorney in fact, had the legal right to transfer assets to protect them. To protect you." My heart started beating so fast I thought I might need to go back to that hospital. "I never signed no power of attorney. I signed admission papers. That's all I signed." Marcus wouldn't look me in the eye. My tall, strong son, who used to be scared of the dark, kept his eyes on the ground like a child who knew he'd done wrong but was doing it anyway. "The locksmith is here to change the locks," Tiffany continued, checking her phone like I was boring her. "We're giving you 30 minutes to get your essential items. Everything else stays here. It's part of the property now." "Marcus!" I grabbed my son's arm. "Baby, look at me. Look at your mama. This is wrong and you know it. Whatever she's telling you, whatever she's promising you, it's not worth this. This is your mama. I raised you better than this." He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes broke my heart into a million pieces. It wasn't my son looking back at me. It was a stranger. A cold, empty stranger. "You raised me?" He laughed, but it was bitter. "You raised me to be poor. You raised me to struggle. You raised me to watch you work yourself to death for nothing. Tiffany showed me a different way. A better way." "A better way?" Tears were streaming down my face now. "Baby, I gave you everything." "You gave me scraps," he said. "Tiffany's family has money, real money. She showed me what life could be like. And now this house is ours. The equity in this property is over $500,000. We're going to sell it and start our real life." Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. The locksmith looked uncomfortable, shifting his tools from one hand to the other. "Look, folks, I don't want to get in the middle of family business. But I got the work order here, and it says change the locks. If there's a legal dispute, maybe y'all should handle that before I start drilling." "There's no dispute," Tiffany said, her voice sharp. "We have the paperwork. Change the locks." I stumbled backward, my legs weak. Mrs. Patterson from next door was standing on her porch in her robe. She'd been my neighbor for 20 years, watching Marcus grow up, bringing me sweet potato pie at Christmas. When she saw me, she started walking over. "Carol, what's going on here at 3 in the morning?" "They're stealing my house," I said, my voice small. My own son is stealing my house. More lights were coming on up and down the street. Mr. Washington from across the way came out. Then young Jamal from 2 houses down, his phone already up and recording. In this neighborhood, we looked out for each other. When somebody was in trouble, everybody came. "Y'all need to get back inside," Marcus said, trying to sound tough. "This is private family business." "Private?" Mr. Washington crossed his arms over his chest. He was a big man, used to work construction before his back gave out. "Son, we watched you grow up. We watched your mama raise you right, and now you're out here at 3 a.m. trying to put her out on the street? In her nightgown? That ain't family business. That's disgrace." "You don't know what you're talking about, old man," Tiffany said. "Watch your mouth, girl," Mrs. Patterson snapped. "You might have book learning, but you got no home training. That's clear enough." I looked at the house I'd loved for so many years, the porch where Marcus took his first steps, the window where I used to watch for him to come home from school, the door I painted yellow because yellow meant hope and sunshine. My home, my sanctuary, my everything. "Please," I whispered to Marcus, "please don't do this, baby. Whatever I did wrong, whatever you think I didn't give you, I'm sorry, but please don't take my home. This is all I have." For just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, something that looked like my son, but then Tiffany touched his arm, leaned in, and whispered something I couldn't hear, and that flicker died. 30 minutes, he said. "Get your stuff and go. You can stay at a shelter or something until you figure things out." A shelter. My son was telling me to go to a shelter. I walked into my house like a ghost, my feet moving but my mind somewhere else. Everything looked the same, but different. The couch I'd saved up for 6 months to buy. The TV Marcus gave me last Christmas. The pictures on the wall of happier times. None of it was mine anymore. In my bedroom, I grabbed clothes with shaking hands. My Sunday dress, my church shoes, the photo album with pictures of Marcus as a baby. My Bible. My mama's jewelry box. That was all I could carry. When I came back outside, half the neighborhood was there, phones up, recording everything. Mrs. Patterson was crying. Mr. Washington was on the phone with someone, his voice angry. "I called my nephew," he told me. "He's a lawyer. He says this don't sound legal. Says power of attorney don't work like that. He's coming over first thing in the morning." "Won't matter," Tiffany said. "The transfer is done. Legal and binding." She signed the papers. "I never signed nothing!" I was screaming now, all the pain and betrayal coming out. "You forged my signature. You stole my house." "Prove it," Tiffany smirked. "Oh, wait, you can't. Because you were confused. Disoriented. The hospital records will show that. You were talking out of your head, saying strange things. The nurses wrote it all down." Something cold went through me. "The nurses?" "My cousin works at Mercy Hospital," Tiffany said. "She made sure we had everything documented. Your confusion, your paranoia, your inability to make sound decisions. It's all there in black and white." This wasn't just theft. This was planned, calculated. They'd set this up from the beginning. The locksmith had finished his work. He handed Marcus a new set of keys and took his money without looking at me. I stood on the lawn I used to mow every Saturday, holding everything I owned in 2 bags, and watched my son walk into my house and close the door. Mrs. Patterson put her arm around me. "Come on, baby. You're staying with me tonight. We'll figure this out." As we walked to her house, I looked back one more time. Marcus was watching from the window. Our eyes met, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my son's face. Guilt, shame, but not enough to stop him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Mrs. Patterson's spare room, the room that smelled like mothballs and memories, and tried to understand how my life had fallen apart so fast. Just 3 days ago, I was fine, healthy, happy. I'd gone to Wednesday night Bible study, sang hymns, praised the Lord. Then I caught that cold that turned into pneumonia, and everything changed. In the hospital, I remembered signing papers, but I was so sick, so tired. The nurse kept bringing forms, saying it was just standard stuff. I signed because that's what you do in hospitals. You trust them. You think they're helping you. But Tiffany's cousin worked there. Had she switched the papers? Had she made me sign something I didn't understand? I thought about Marcus, my baby boy. Except he wasn't my baby boy. Not really. I'd never told him the truth. Never told him that I wasn't his birth mother. I'd adopted him when he was 2 years old, after his real parents died in a car accident. They'd been my friends. Not close friends, but church friends. The kind you see on Sundays and wave to in the grocery store. When they died, nobody wanted Marcus. The father's family said they were too old. The mother's family said they were too poor. He was about to go into foster care, and I couldn't let that happen. So I adopted him, raised him as my own, loved him as my own. I never told him because I didn't want him to feel different, didn't want him to feel less than. He was my son in every way that mattered. But maybe he'd always known somehow. Maybe he'd always felt the disconnect. Maybe that's why it was so easy for him to betray me. Or maybe Tiffany had found out somehow and told him, used it against me, against us. The sun came up, and with it came Mr. Washington's nephew, Attorney Jerome Washington. He was a sharp young man in a sharp suit, and he listened to my story with a frown that got deeper and deeper. "Miss Carroll, this doesn't sound legal at all," he said. "Power of attorney can't be used to transfer property to the attorney in fact or their spouse. That's self-dealing, and it's illegal. Even if you did sign a power of attorney, which I doubt, what they did with it is fraud." Hope flickered in my chest. "So I can get my house back?" "We can fight it. But it's going to take time and money. We'll need to file an emergency motion, get a court date, prove fraud. And in the meantime, they're living in your house, legally until a judge says otherwise they have possession." "How long?" "Could be weeks, could be months. Depends on the court schedule and how hard they fight." Months. I didn't have months. I had 2 bags of clothes and $57 in my checking account. "How much will this cost?" Jerome looked uncomfortable. "For a case like this, with the complexity and the time involved, we're looking at least $15,000 in legal fees. Maybe more if it goes to trial." $15,000. I might as well have said 15 million. I didn't have that kind of money. I'd never had that kind of money. "I can maybe work out a payment plan," Jerome said kindly. "But I'm going to need something up front. At least $5,000 to get started." $5,000 I didn't have. Couldn't get. Had no way of getting. I thanked him and watched him drive away in his nice car to his nice life, leaving me with my 2 bags and my broken heart. Mrs. Patterson made me breakfast, but I couldn't eat. Every bite felt like sand in my mouth. She tried to comfort me, telling me stories about her own troubles, how she'd overcome them with faith and prayer. But all I could think about was Marcus closing that door, choosing that woman over me, choosing money over love. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Keisha, my granddaughter, Marcus's daughter from his first marriage. She was 22, smart as a whip, working on her master's degree in social work. "Grandma?" Her voice was scared. "What's going on?" "Dad posted something weird on Facebook about you having dementia and him taking care of the house for you. Is that true?" "No, baby. It's not true. He's lying. He and that new wife of his stole my house." There was silence on the other end. Then, "I knew something was wrong. Grandma, I need to tell you something about Tiffany. I did some research after Dad told me they got married. Her real name isn't Tiffany Brown. It's Tiffany Carver." Carver. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. "Grandma, you still there?" "Yes, baby. I'm here." But my mind was 50 years away, remembering another Carver. James Carver. The man who'd tried to kill my husband. My first husband. My real husband. The one everyone thought died in Vietnam. I think she's running some kind of con, Keisha was saying. Her family has a history. Her grandfather did time for fraud. Her father disappeared after some kind of federal case. I couldn't find much, but what I found wasn't good. Keep digging, I told her. Find out everything you can about her family. Everything. After I hung up, I sat there shaking. Carver. It couldn't be a coincidence, could it? I'd been married before Marcus came into my life. To James Washington, the love of my life. We'd gotten married young, right after high school. He'd gone to Vietnam, and I'd waited for him. When he came back, he was different. Haunted. Angry. He'd seen things he couldn't talk about, done things that gave him nightmares. Then one day, men came looking for him. Dangerous men. He told me he'd witnessed something during the war crimes, atrocities, and some of the men involved were important people back home. People who didn't want their secrets told. James was going to testify, going to tell the truth, and 3 days before he was supposed to go to Washington, D.C. to meet with federal prosecutors, his car exploded. They told me he was dead, showed me the burned-out shell of the car. There wasn't enough left to bury. I'd mourned him for 2 years, crying myself to sleep every night, before I finally accepted he was gone. But what if he wasn't? What if he'd been in witness protection all these years? And what if Tiffany was related to the people he'd testified against? My phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? Heavy breathing. Then a woman's voice, young and scared. Is this Carol Washington? Yes. Who is this? My name is Brianna. I was Marcus's girlfriend, before Tiffany. I sat up straight. Go on. He dumped me out of nowhere 6 months ago. Said he'd met someone new. It broke my heart, but I moved on. But then I heard what's happening to you, and I thought you should know. Marcus didn't just meet Tiffany. She sought him out, found him at his job, started showing up everywhere he went. It was like she was hunting him. Why would she do that? I don't know, but she's not who she says she is. I followed her once, before Marcus and I broke up. She met with these men in suits, government-looking men. They gave her something, an envelope, and she smiled like she'd won the lottery. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. Did you see what was in the envelope? No, but after that meeting she started getting close to Marcus, really close, and now she has your house. Miss Carroll, I think you're in danger. I think Marcus is in danger too, even if he doesn't know it. Before I could ask more questions, I heard shouting in the background on her end. I have to go, Brianna whispered. Someone's at my door. Be careful, Miss Carroll. Watch your back. The line went dead. I looked at Mrs. Patterson, who'd heard everything. Her face was pale. Carol, she said slowly. What kind of trouble are you in? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm about to find out. That's when we heard it. A car pulling up outside. Not just any car, multiple cars. And then the sound that changed everything. A doorbell. Not Mrs. Patterson's doorbell. My doorbell. The doorbell of the house I no longer owned. Mrs. Patterson and I rushed to her window. We could see my house across the yards. Could see Marcus opening the door. Could see him stumble backward, shock on his face. And there, standing in my doorway, was a man I hadn't seen in 50 years. Tall, gray-haired, older, but unmistakable. James. My James. My husband, who was supposed to be dead, was standing on my porch, very much alive, with what looked like FBI agents behind him. And Tiffany was screaming. I ran out of Mrs. Patterson's house without thinking, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. I made it halfway across the yard when the screaming got louder. More cars pulled up, real FBI cars this time, with lights and sirens. Agents swarmed my house. I saw them putting handcuffs on Tiffany. She was fighting, cursing, spitting like an animal. Marcus looked confused, terrified, like he'd just woken up from a nightmare into something worse. And James was walking toward me. 50 years fell away. He was older, grayer, harder. But those eyes, those were the same eyes that had looked at me across the church altar and promised forever. "Carol," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I had to stay away. Had to keep you safe." "You're dead," I whispered. "They told me you were dead." "I know. I had to be dead. The only way to protect you from the people I testified against. The only way to keep you alive." "For 50 years?" Tears were streaming down my face. "You let me think you were dead for 50 years?" "I've been watching over you this whole time," he said. "The house you bought? I arranged the loan. The job you got at the hospital that gave you benefits? I made sure you got that interview. Marcus's college scholarship? That was me too. Every time you needed something, I found a way to provide it without you knowing." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "Marcus. You know about Marcus?" "I know you adopted him after his parents died. Good people. I know you raised him right, even when it was hard. I know you gave him everything." His face darkened. "And I know his wife is Tiffany Carver, granddaughter of Frank Carver, the man who tried to kill me, the man I put in prison. She married Marcus to get to me? To get to you. To get to the money I've been hiding for you all these years." He pulled out papers from his jacket. "This house isn't in your name, Carol. Not legally. It's in a trust. A trust I set up that can't be touched by power of attorney, can't be stolen, can't be taken. The deed Marcus thinks he has is worthless." I couldn't process it all. "What money?" $50 million, James said quietly. "In hidden accounts. Compensation from the government for what I did, what I gave up. It's all for you. It's always been for you, and Tiffany found out about it somehow. She's been planning this for years, using Marcus to get to you, to find the accounts." The FBI agents were bringing Tiffany out in handcuffs. She saw me and lunged, screaming words I won't repeat. They pushed her into a car, and she was still screaming. Her beautiful face twisted with hate. Marcus was standing on the porch, looking lost, looking broken. "He didn't know," James said. "Your son didn't know what she was planning. He thought it was love, thought she wanted him. But she was using him, manipulating him. We have recordings of her admitting it all to her handlers. She was going to take everything and disappear, leaving Marcus to take the blame." I looked at my son, and for the first time in days, I saw my baby boy again. Saw him crying, saw him lost and scared and sorry. But before I could move toward him, before I could say anything, a black SUV screeched up. Men in masks jumped out, guns drawn. "Get down!" James yelled, pushing me to the ground. Gunshots, screaming, chaos. When I looked up, Marcus was bleeding. There was blood spreading across his shirt, and he was falling. "No!" I screamed. "Not my baby! Not my baby!" More gunshots, FBI agents firing back, one of the masked men going down, then another. But Marcus was still bleeding on my porch. My baby was bleeding, and I couldn't get to him. James was covering me with his body. "Stay down," he was saying. "Carol, stay down." But I couldn't. My son was dying. My son who had betrayed me, yes. But my son, my baby, the boy I'd raised, the boy I'd loved. I pushed James away and ran. Ran like I hadn't run in 40 years. Ran through gunfire and chaos and fear. I made it to Marcus, fell beside him, put my hands on the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Mama," he whispered. Blood bubbled at his lips. "Mama, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Hush," I said, pressing harder. "Don't talk. Save your strength. You're going to be okay, you hear me? You're going to be okay." But there was so much blood. Too much blood. An ambulance was coming. I could hear the sirens, but they sounded so far away. James was beside me now, his hands adding pressure to the wound. "Hang on, son," he was saying. "Just hang on." Marcus looked up at him, confused. "Who?" "Later," James said. "We'll explain everything later. Just stay with us." The paramedics arrived. They pushed us aside, worked on Marcus with efficient hands. They loaded him onto a stretcher, into the ambulance. "Are you family?" one of them asked me. "I'm his mother," I said. They let me climb in. As the doors closed, I saw James standing there, surrounded by FBI agents and police. Saw Mrs. Patterson crying on her porch. Saw my house, my yellow door, covered in crime scene tape. In the ambulance, I held Marcus's hand. "Stay with me, baby," I whispered. "Please stay with me." His eyes fluttered. "The money," he gasped. She said there was money, hidden money. I had to help her find it. Shh, don't talk about that now. I betrayed you." Tears leaked from his eyes. "For money that wasn't even real. For a woman who didn't even love me. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I forgive you," I said, and I meant it. Because he was my son. No matter what he'd done, he was my son. "I forgive you, baby. Just please don't leave me. Please." The paramedic was doing chest compressions now. The monitor was beeping wrong. Everything was beeping wrong. "We're losing him," the paramedic said. "No." I gripped Marcus's hand tighter. "You fight, Marcus Washington. You hear me? You fight." But his hand was going limp in mine. His eyes were closing. "No, no, 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 no," I was saying. "Please, God, please. Not my baby. Take me instead. Please take me instead." The monitor made a sound I'll never forget. A long, flat sound that meant everything and nothing. "Time of death," the paramedic said softly, looking at his watch. And just like that, my son was gone. They pronounced Marcus dead at 3:47 a.m., but I died right there with him. The paramedics tried to comfort me, their voices soft and professional, but I couldn't hear them over the sound of my own heart breaking. My baby was gone. My son was gone. And the last real conversation we'd had was him telling me to go to a shelter. At the hospital, they took me to a private room. Not because I was special, but because I was making too much noise, crying too loud, disturbing the other patients with my grief. A nurse brought me water I couldn't drink and tissues that couldn't dry the ocean pouring from my eyes. James found me there. He walked into that room looking older than his years, carrying the weight of 50 years of secrets and lies and hidden protection. He sat beside me and took my hand, and for the first time since the ambulance, I felt something other than pain. I felt anger. "This is your fault," I said, my voice raw. "If you had just stayed dead, if you had just left us alone, Marcus would still be alive." James flinched like I'd hit him. I know, Carol. I've been telling myself that since the first shot was fired. But those men weren't there because of me. They were there because of Tiffany. Because she failed, and her family doesn't tolerate failure." "What family? What are you talking about?" He pulled out a folder, thick with papers and photographs. Frank Carver wasn't just a war criminal. He was connected to organized crime. Drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, human trafficking. I didn't just testify about what happened in Vietnam. I testified about everything. And I put away a lot of people. Powerful people. Tiffany is Frank's granddaughter, but she's also connected to the Moretti crime family through her mother's side. He showed me pictures. Tiffany with men in expensive suits. Tiffany at meetings in private clubs. Tiffany with her real family, a family that dealt in death and destruction. "She's been planning this for 5 years," James continued. Ever since she found out about the trust, about the money. She investigated you, found out about Marcus, learned everything about him. Then she seduced him, married him, and tried to steal everything. But when the power of attorney didn't work, when she couldn't access the real accounts, she panicked, called in her family. They were supposed to grab you, torture you until you gave up information. But I got there first. And now my son is dead because of it. I'm sorry. Carol, I'm so sorry. A knock on the door interrupted us. FBI agent Rodriguez walked in, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a grim expression. Mrs. Washington, I need to ask you some questions. Over the next hour, I told her everything. About Marcus and Tiffany, about the house, about the power of attorney. She recorded it all, her face getting darker with each revelation. We've been tracking the Carver-Moretti connection for 3 years, she said. Tiffany was on our radar, but we didn't know about her connection to your family until James broke protocol and intervened. She's facing federal charges for fraud, conspiracy, attempted theft, and now, because of tonight, conspiracy to commit murder. The men who shot your son were her uncle and cousin. We got them both. One's dead, one's in custody and talking. What about the hospital? I asked. She said her cousin worked there, that they falsified records to make me look incompetent. Agent Rodriguez's jaw tightened. We're investigating that now. If what you're saying is true, there could be multiple people facing charges. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. This thing is bigger than we thought. After she left, I sat in that hospital room with James, and we cried together. Cried for Marcus. Cried for the years we'd lost. Cried for the life we could have had if the world had been different. I have so many questions, I finally said. I know, and I'll answer them all. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. The FBI has a protection detail for you. Until we know everyone involved is caught, you're in danger. I don't care about danger. I just lost my son. Which is why we need to make sure we don't lose you too. By the time the sun came up, half my church was in that hospital waiting room. Pastor Williams, Sister Johnson, Deacon Brown, Mrs. Patterson. They came in their Sunday clothes even though it was Thursday, because when somebody in the congregation hurts, everybody comes. Pastor Williams prayed over me, his deep voice filling the room with scripture and comfort. Sister Johnson held my hand and cried with me. Deacon Brown, who'd known Marcus since he was a boy, broke down completely. That boy used to help me with the church van, he sobbed. Used to wash it every Saturday, wouldn't take a dime, said it was his service to the Lord. More people kept coming, people from the neighborhood, people I'd worked with at the hospital before I retired. People Marcus had gone to school with. The waiting room overflowed with love and support and grief. Keisha arrived around noon, her eyes red from crying. She ran to me and collapsed in my arms. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, baby. I should have dug deeper into Tiffany's background. Should have warned him sooner. None of us knew, I told her. She fooled all of us. Keisha pulled back and looked at James, who'd been standing quietly in the corner. And who are you? This is James Washington, I said. Your grandfather. Your real grandfather. Keisha's mouth fell open. But Grandpa died. In Vietnam. You told me... I told you what I thought was true. Turns out he's been alive this whole time. The reunion was emotional and complicated. Keisha had 1,000 questions. And James answered them all patiently. About the witness protection. About watching over us. About the money. $50 million? Keisha's eyes went wide. Grandma, you're rich? The money doesn't matter, I said. Not without Marcus. But James shook his head. Marcus would want you to use it. To live the life you deserve. To help others the way you've always helped everyone else. By that evening, the news had spread. Not just through the neighborhood, but everywhere. The story was too big to contain. elderly woman robbed by her own son. Secret husband returns after 50 years. Organized crime connection. Dramatic shootout. Someone had recorded parts of it on their phone, and now it was on every local news station. Channel 5 News showed up at the hospital, wanting interviews. I refused, but Pastor Williams didn't. He stood in front of those cameras and told Carol Washington's story, told them about a woman who'd worked 3 jobs to raise a son alone, who'd given everything and asked for nothing, who'd been betrayed and stolen from and nearly destroyed, but who'd never stopped being strong. "This is what happens when greed overtakes love," Pastor Williams said, his voice booming. "When children forget what their parents sacrificed. When evil people prey on the elderly and vulnerable. But this is also a story about faith, about community, about God's justice prevailing even in the darkest times." The story went viral. By the next morning, it was national news. CNN picked it up, Fox News, MSNBC. Everyone wanted to talk about the elderly Black woman who'd been victimized by her own family, about the husband who'd protected her from the shadows for 50 years, about the dramatic FBI raid and shooting. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, lawyers, people wanting to help, people wanting interviews. I turned it all off and focused on what mattered: burying my son. Marcus's funeral was the hardest thing I've ever done. The church was packed, people standing in the aisles, spilling out into the street. Some came because they knew him. Some came because they knew me. Some came because they'd seen the story on TV and wanted to be part of something. I sat in the front pew between James and Keisha, staring at the casket, wondering how it had come to this, wondering if I'd failed him somehow, wondering if I'd loved him wrong. Pastor Williams preached about redemption, about how Marcus had been deceived but had died trying to protect me, about how his last words were an apology, about how God forgives even the worst mistakes if the heart is truly sorry. "Marcus Washington made a terrible choice," Pastor Williams said. "He let greed and manipulation lead him down a dark path. But in the end, he remembered who he was. He remembered his mama's love. And he died trying to make it right. That's not nothing. That's redemption." I wanted to believe it. Wanted to believe my son had been redeemed. But all I could see was him standing in my doorway, telling me to get out. After the funeral, Attorney Jerome Washington approached me again. "Miss Carroll, I've been working with the FBI and reviewing the documents. The power of attorney Tiffany used was completely fraudulent. Your signature was forged. The hospital employee who witnessed it has been arrested, and the house transfer is void. You're getting everything back." "Everything except my son." "I know, I'm sorry." He hesitated. "There's something else. Marcus had a will, a real one, made before he met Tiffany. He left everything to Keisha and to you. His life insurance, his 401k, his savings. It's not millions, but it's something. About $200,000 total. $200,000 that came from death. I didn't want it. Didn't want any of it. But then I thought about what I could do with it. The people I could help. The good I could create from this tragedy. "Give it to Keisha," I said. "For her education. For her future." Jerome nodded. "I'll make sure it's done." The court case against Tiffany started 2 weeks later. I had to testify, had to face her across that courtroom. She looked different now. No fancy clothes, no long nails, no makeup, just an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs and hate in her eyes. The prosecutor was a sharp woman named Lisa Chen, and she tore Tiffany apart, showed the jury the forged documents, the recordings of Tiffany talking to her family about the con, the evidence of the hospital conspiracy, the connection to organized crime. Tiffany Carver targeted Carol Washington specifically because of information her family had about a hidden trust, Lisa Chen told the jury. She researched Mrs. Washington's life, identified her adopted son as a vulnerability, and spent months seducing him and gaining his trust. She manipulated him into betraying his own mother. And when her plan failed, when she couldn't steal the money she thought was there, she called in her criminal family to finish the job. Marcus Washington died because of Tiffany Carver's greed. Carol Washington nearly lost everything because of Tiffany Carver's greed. This is not a simple fraud case. This is a conspiracy that destroyed a family. Tiffany's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim, said she'd been manipulated by her family, said she'd really loved Marcus, said she'd never intended for anyone to get hurt. But the jury didn't believe it. Neither did I. When they asked me to testify, I walked to that stand with my head high. I told my story. All of it. Every painful detail. "Mrs. Washington," Lisa Chen asked me, "when you saw your son standing in your doorway at 3 a.m, telling you to leave your own house, what did you feel?" "Like my heart was being ripped out," I said. "Like everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd believed in was a lie. I raised that boy from when he was 2 years old, loved him like he came from my own body, and he threw me away like garbage for a woman he barely knew, and money that wasn't even real. And how do you feel about him now?" I looked at Tiffany when I answered. "I forgive him, because he was manipulated, used, destroyed by a woman who saw him as nothing more than a tool to steal from an old lady. My son made mistakes, but he paid for them with his life. And I forgive him because that's what mothers do. We love even when it hurts. We forgive even when it's hard." Tiffany looked away. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and felony murder because Marcus died during the commission of her crimes. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, Tiffany finally spoke. "I'm sorry," she said, but her voice was flat. Empty. "I made mistakes. I got caught up in something bigger than me. My family has always been involved in difficult things. I thought I could change that, make us legitimate. But I was wrong, and Marcus Washington paid the price for my mistakes." It wasn't a real apology, just words. But it didn't matter. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in federal prison. She'd be an old woman when she got out, older than I was now. As they led her away, she looked at me one more time. "The money," she said. "Is it real? Do you really have 50 million? I didn't answer, just watched her disappear through the door. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I didn't want to talk to them, but James convinced me to say something. "Your story can help other people," he said. "Other elderly people who are being taken advantage of. Other families being torn apart by greed." So I stood in front of those cameras and spoke. "My name is Carol Washington, and I'm 71 years old. 3 weeks ago I had a son, a home, and a simple life. Today, I have only 2 of those things. My son is gone because an evil woman saw an opportunity to steal from me. She used him, manipulated him, destroyed him, and she's not alone. All over this country, people are targeting the elderly, stealing from us, taking advantage of us, using our own families against us." I took a breath, the cameras flashing in my face. "But I want other people to know. You can fight back. You can stand up. You don't have to accept abuse, even from your own children, even from people you love. And there are good people who will help you. Lawyers like Attorney Washington, FBI agents like Agent Rodriguez, community members like my neighbors who recorded everything and became witnesses, church family like mine who surrounded me with love when I had nothing." "Mrs. Washington," a reporter called out, "is it true you've inherited $50 million from your husband's government settlement?" I looked at James. He nodded. "Yes," I said. "It's true. My husband James, who I thought was dead for 50 years, has been protecting me this whole time. He set up a trust that couldn't be touched, couldn't be stolen. And now that trust is mine. What will you do with the money?" I hadn't known the answer to that question until that moment. But standing there thinking about Marcus, thinking about all the pain and loss, I suddenly knew. "I'm going to start a foundation," I said. "The Marcus Washington Foundation for Elder Justice. We're going to help elderly people who are being abused and exploited. We're going to provide legal services, counseling, safe housing. We're going to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else." The reporters exploded with questions, but I was done talking. I walked away with James and Keisha, ready to start the next chapter of my life. But we weren't quite done with the old chapter yet. 2 days after the trial, Agent Rodriguez called me. "We arrested 3 more people in connection with your case. The hospital administrator who looked the other way while her employee forged documents, the notary who falsified the power of attorney, and Tiffany's mother, who was coordinating everything from behind the scenes." "Her mother?" "Angela Moretti Carver. She's been on our wanted list for years. Money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy. We could never get enough evidence to arrest her. Until now. Your case gave us everything we needed. She's going away for a long time." More arrests followed, more pieces of the conspiracy revealed. It turned out Tiffany's plan had involved dozens of people, a whole network of criminals preying on vulnerable elderly people across multiple states. The FBI found evidence of at least 30 other victims. Elderly people who'd lost their homes, their savings, their dignity to similar schemes. Some had died, some had given up. But now, with Tiffany and her family arrested, they were getting justice too. My story became their story. Our collective fight against elder abuse became national news. Congress started talking about new laws to protect seniors. States started creating elder abuse registries. It was like Marcus's death had started a movement. 3 months after the trial, I moved back into my house. The yellow door that had once meant hope meant something different now. It meant survival, resilience, victory. James moved in too. 50 years was too long to be apart. We had a lot of lost time to make up for, and neither of us was getting any younger. "You know people are going to talk," I told him as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. "Saying we're too old to be living in sin." He laughed. "Then we'll get married again. Make it official. Give the church ladies something else to gossip about." We did get married, in a small ceremony at the church with Keisha as my maid of honor and Pastor Williams officiating. Mrs. Patterson cried happy tears. Mr. Washington gave James a hard handshake and a warning to treat me right or else. The Marcus Washington Foundation for Elder Justice launched 6 months after the trial. We set up offices, hired lawyers and social workers, created a hotline. In the first month, we got over 1,000 calls. Elderly people being abused, being stolen from, being manipulated by their own families or by strangers. We helped them, all of them, provided legal representation, found safe housing, connected them with counseling, and we didn't charge them a dime. Keisha joined the foundation after finishing her master's degree. She became our director of outreach, traveling around the country, telling our story, helping other families. "Grandma," she said one day, "Dad would be so proud of what you're doing, taking something terrible and making it beautiful." "You think so?" "I know so. He made a mistake. A huge mistake. But his death wasn't meaningless. It sparked all this. All the people we're helping. All the laws being changed. That's his legacy too." I wanted to believe her. And maybe, slowly, I was starting to. A year after Marcus died, I visited his grave. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind where everything feels possible. I brought flowers, yellow roses, his favorite, and sat on the grass beside his headstone. "Hey, baby," I said. "It's Mama. I know you can hear me. Wherever you are, I want you to know I forgive you, completely, totally. What happened wasn't all your fault. You were manipulated by an evil woman. You were used. And I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from that." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I felt something. Peace, maybe. Or forgiveness flowing both ways. "I'm doing good," I continued. The foundation is helping a lot of people. James and I are making up for lost time. Keisha is thriving. You'd be so proud of her. She's strong and smart and beautiful, just like her mama was. And she's helping me honor your memory by making sure other families don't suffer like we did. I stood up, my old knees creaking. I love you, Marcus. I always will. You are my son, my baby. Nothing will ever change that. Rest easy now. Mama's got things handled down here. As I walked back to my car, I saw James waiting for me. My husband, my protector, my partner for whatever time we had left. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. For the first time in a long time, I'm actually okay. We drove home to our yellow door, to the house that had almost been stolen but was now truly mine, to the life I'd rebuilt from ashes and pain and loss. That night, we sat on the porch and watched the neighborhood, kids playing, neighbors talking, life happening all around us. Mrs. Patterson brought over her sweet potato pie. Mr. Washington stopped by to complain about his back, but really just to check on us. Young Jamal came by to show me his college acceptance letter, full scholarship to Howard University. Miss Carroll, he said, I put in my essay that you inspired me, that watching you fight back against injustice made me want to be a lawyer, to help people like you. I hugged him tight. Your mama would be so proud. I'm so proud. As the stars came out, James took my hand. Any regrets? I thought about it. About the pain and loss. About Marcus and the betrayal. About 50 years without the man I loved. About everything that had gone wrong. No, I finally said. No regrets. Because all of it, the good and the bad, made me who I am. And who I am is a survivor, a fighter, a woman who took the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into something that helps others. That's not nothing. No, James agreed. That's everything. 2 years later, the Marcus Washington Foundation for Elder Justice had helped over 5,000 people. We'd recovered over $20 million in stolen assets. We'd put dozens of scammers and abusers in prison. We'd changed laws in 12 states. And we'd given hope to thousands of elderly people who thought they had none. I'd also testified before Congress, written a book about my experience, and been featured in a documentary about elder abuse. People recognized me on the street now, called me brave, called me an inspiration. But I was just Carol. Just an old woman who'd been knocked down and refused to stay there. Just a mother who'd lost her son but found her purpose. Just a wife who'd gotten a second chance at love after 50 years. Just a survivor who decided to fight back. And that yellow door? It didn't just mean hope anymore. It meant justice. It meant resilience. It meant that no matter how dark things got, there was always light on the other side. You just had to be strong enough to keep walking toward it. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.